A woman with deep brown skin came to the aid of a wealthy man stranded on the edge of nowhere. When his eyes caught a glimpse of the ring on her finger, he froze. No one had ever noticed her before. No one even recalled her name. But under that blistering sun, on a lonely stretch of cracked pavement, she became the only person who could help a man who seemingly had it all. His sleek luxury sedan sat immobile, its hood emitting smoke on a desolate road. Inside, a high-level executive, used to having doors open for him, was now helpless and unsure how to ask for assistance. Daniel Mercer slammed the steering wheel of his Bentley, checking the diamond-studded watch on his wrist. 11:43. 17. Minutes left until he was expected to pitch the project that could secure the future of his multi-billion-dollar firm. Sweat soaked through his tailored shirt as he opened the hood, only to be hit with a thick puff of steam that forced him to stumble back. "Unbelievable," he muttered, loosening his tie. His suit, worth more than most monthly salaries, was utterly useless for car troubles. And when it came to engines, he was as clueless as a child. The irony hit him hard. The man who commanded corporate boardrooms was now powerless in front of a smoking vehicle. Then came the sputter of a rusty truck, pulling up nearby. He squinted at the figure stepping out, a woman in worn-out jeans and a flannel shirt, her rolled-up sleeves revealing toned arms. Her curly hair was tied back, and the sun bounced off her smooth, dark skin. "Need a hand?" she asked, walking toward him with a calm confidence that made his panic feel louder. "I've got a vital meeting in 15 minutes, he snapped. "My assistant should be sending help, but this whole area's a dead zone." She didn't flinch at his tone or his name-brand frustration. Instead, she leaned into the engine bay like she owned the car. "Your cooling system's gone," she said firmly. "I can patch it up, get you back on the road. It won't hold forever, but it'll give you a window." Daniel's eyes narrowed as he gave her a once-over, barely hiding his doubt. "You sure?" "I run a garage 10 miles from here," she answered, her tone as steady as her gaze. She returned to her truck without waiting for his okay. Her steps were deliberate, efficient, not a single motion wasted. Then she got to work, her compact, calloused hands moving with the "Another 5 minutes, and your engine would have been toast," she said without glancing up, tightening a component Jack couldn't even name. "These machines are beasts, but surprisingly fragile. Kinda like some folks." The jab didn't escape him, but urgency drowned any hint of offense. "How do you know so much about these high-end cars working out here?" Jack caught himself mid-sentence, realizing how the words sounded. "In a place like this?" she finished for him, casting a sharp look over her shoulder. "I read, I train, I give a damn about what I do. You don't have to live in a skyscraper to pursue excellence, Mr. Mercer." Jack blinked in surprise. "How do you know my name?" "Your face shows up in the finance column often enough," she replied, almost bored, snapping the hood shut. "You should be able to reach the city now." Jack exhaled in relief. "I owe you big time," he said, reaching into his wallet and pulling out some cash. "Please, take this as a thank you." But when she extended her hand, Jack froze. A vintage silver ring, topped with a small sapphire, rested on her finger. Too delicate for someone whose hands told stories of labor and grit. He knew that ring. Knew it like a scar. Time stalled. A sudden image blurred into his mind. A young girl with bright, wondering eyes. A promise whispered beneath the branches of an old elm. the last keepsake his mother gave him before she passed. "Where did you get that ring?" he asked, voice cracking slightly. The heat seemed to hold its breath. She instinctively curled her fingers, shielding the jewel. "It belonged to my mum," she answered flatly, though her eyes now watched him carefully. "Why are you asking?" She couldn't have known. Not then, not now. That 2 decades ago that same ring had been placed on her small hand by a boy who swore he'd return for her. A boy who was now the man in front of her, a man who had let the years wash away a vow, only to cross her path again in the most improbable of ways. If stories of lost promises and unlikely reunions strike a chord in your heart, don't miss what happens next. As this forgotten ring sets off a chain reaction neither of them saw coming. Nina's eyes hardened when she caught Jack staring. She pocketed the bills, turned her back, and headed for her truck. "If it gives out again, my garage is 10 miles ahead. First left after the Clearwater sign." Jack stood still, conflicted between the investors waiting and the ring that screamed from the past. "That ring," he began, but her engine roared to life. "Your meeting, Mr. Mercer," she reminded him coldly. "They're expecting you." As the luxury car pulled away, Nina remained rooted to the spot. "He didn't even recognize me," she whispered, thumb brushing over the ring, a motion she'd repeated unconsciously for 20 years. "He never really saw me at all." Back at Nina's garage, she attacked a half-disassembled engine with determined fury. "You'll shred that carburetor if you keep at it like that," said Marcus, her uncle, tall and silver-haired, as he approached, cautiously. He was the only person who knew her full story. Marcus had arrived years ago, needing help with a busted engine. A twist of fate too ironic to ignore. Now he stood frozen. Jack Mercer. The boy who once vowed he'd return. The man who forgot. Nina corrected, wiping her hands on a rag. He looked straight at me and saw just another grease-stained worker. He recognized the ring, but not the girl who held onto it for 20 years. That evening, Nina pulled a wooden box from beneath her bed. Inside were old newspaper clippings, meticulously filed. Stories tracing Jack's journey. Photos of awards, charity events, and a glamorous engagement to Helena Brooks, heiress to a fashion empire. "Tomorrow he won't even remember the ring," she whispered to the quiet room. But Nina was wrong. The following morning, a plain sedan parked in front of the garage. Jack stepped out, this time without his sharp attire, as if trying to blend in. "We're open," Nina said from a distance, arms crossed. "I'm not here for repairs," he replied, extending his hand. In his palm lay a small wooden pin, shaped like a bird in flight. Nina froze. It was the brooch, her first carved sculpture, given to Jack as a farewell gift years ago. "Clearwater Children's Shelter, Elm Wing," he said quietly. "You were the girl who taught me how to carve." When the other boys laughed at me, "You promised you'd come back," Nina said, the words spilling out. "I tried," Jack answered, his expression darkening. "For years. But my father, he had other ideas." Marcus emerged from the back, cleaning his hands with a cloth, his stare heavy with guarded judgment. "So the golden boy returns," he muttered, 2 decades later. Jack didn't flinch. "I get the suspicion, but I'm here because I need a chance to explain. Marcus took me in after the orphanage. Nina said softly. Taught me everything. Gave me a roof when the world didn't. Care. That was my promise to keep, Jack admitted, regret in his voice. Then why now? Nina pressed. Jack inhaled deeply. In 3 weeks, I'll be announcing an engagement to a woman I don't love. Taking control of a corporation I secretly despise. And finally becoming the polished man my father always demanded I be. He paused, his voice quieter. Then I saw you. Or rather, I saw the ring. And something inside me cracked open. His phone rang again, buzzing on the screen. Helena, call number 6. She's persistent, Nina noted, her tone icy. My warden, he said bitterly, rejecting the call. This marriage is a business deal wrapped in flowers. And what exactly do you want from me? Nina asked, folding her arms. Redemption? Forgiveness? Answers, Jack said plainly. And maybe a chance to undo the one thing I regret most. What he didn't tell her was that last night he'd begun digging, researching Nina Rivera, her childhood records, the lost files tied to the land her family once owned, files that had mysteriously... What Nina had hidden in the back of her workshop was a weathered file, its pages yellowed with time, each stamped with the Mercer Corporation seal. Signed by Jack's father, the documents detailed how the Rivera family's land had been illegally seized, the same land where Jack's future corporate headquarters now stood. As they stood face to face, neither of them yet grasped that their pasts were entangled, not just by childhood promises, but by a scheme that shattered a family to build a dynasty. And in just 3 weeks, when Jack was set to unveil his legacy, Nina planned to expose the truth. A truth that could bring down everything the Mercer name had been built upon. 3 days passed since that encounter. Jack had cleared his schedule, ignored calls, and buried himself in archives. Something didn't add up in his father's version of how the land was acquired. At the Mercer estate, digging through his father's study, he discovered a locked file, marked Project Horizon, the same name as Nina's hometown. Using an old copied key, he unlocked it, and what he found made his stomach churn. Agreements, legal threats, and one paper that chilled him to the bone, a forged death certificate for Nina's mother. He declared her dead, Jack whispered in disbelief, just to get the land. Meanwhile, in Marcus's garage, Nina was making her own decision. She couldn't stay silent anymore. I have to confront him, she said, showing Marcus the hidden file. These are real. His father's signature is on everyone. It's dangerous, Marcus warned. The Mercers destroyed your family once. They won't hesitate to do it again. Nina touched the sapphire ring gently. I've got nothing left to lose. That night, as Jack drove toward the garage, his phone lit up. A message from Nina Central Square. 20 minutes. Come alone. The plaza in Horizon was empty when Jack arrived. Nina sat alone on a bench, beneath a tree eerily like the one where they first met as kids. For 20 years, I believed my mother abandoned me, she said without emotion. That everything I loved disappeared in one moment. Nina, I found something awful, Jack cut in, visibly shaken. Your father faked my mother's death, she interrupted, handing him the faded documents. Then he threatened her if she ever tried to find me. He did it all to steal our land. A land with the largest freshwater reserve in the entire region. Jack turned pale as his eyes scanned the pages. The signature. It was identical to the one he'd just seen earlier that night. "Where did you get these?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. "My mother left them with Marcus before she vanished," Nina said softly. "He waited until I was old enough to know the truth." She pulled out an aged photograph. "This is my mom, Amelia Rivera. She didn't leave me. She was forced to disappear." The image showed a kind-eyed woman wearing the same sapphire ring. Behind her, a lush green valley, now buried beneath concrete and glass, carrying the... "Tomorrow, I'm going public," Nina announced firmly. "At the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the New Horizon complex." Jack stared at her, stunned. "There will be media, investors, even top politicians." "Exactly," Nina confirmed. The perfect moment to reveal the Mercer empire was built on fraud, coercion, and shattered lives. Jack's phone buzzed again. His father, fifth call in a row. He ignored it. "There's more," Nina added. "I believe my mother might still be alive." That hit Jack like a punch to the chest. "What? How? Where?" 8 years ago, I got a letter. No name, no return address. But the handwriting was hers. She hesitated. It mentioned a mental care facility in a place called New Dawn. Jack exhaled slowly, his mind racing. "Then don't wait until tomorrow," he said, locking eyes with her. "Come with me now." "To the event?" she asked, confused. "They moved it up," Jack explained. "My father panicked. Word about the project might be leaking. Only the inner circle knows." Inside the limousine on the way to the site, Jack revealed his plan. "I have full access, security, the stage, everything. I can get you into position at the exact moment to confront him. Publicly." What he didn't share was that he had also found where her mother really was, not in a clinic, but on a private Mercer property, held there in silence, a cruel form of leverage his father used to erase the past. The inauguration was grand. The elite of business and politics gathered to admire the sleek towers built over what was once the Rivera family's land. Ernesto Mercer, flawless in a tailored suit, greeted the cameras with the confidence of a man untouchable. "Jack," he said with pride, then noticed Nina. His expression changed. "What's she doing here?" "She's a special guest," Jack replied coolly, "with a powerful story about this land's true origins." Ernesto's smile disappeared. "My office. Now." Inside a luxurious suite overlooking the ruined valley, he stared Nina down. "How much?" he asked sharply. "What's your price to vanish? Like your mother should have." Nina steadied her voice. "I want to know where she is." Ernesto laughed, but there was no warmth in the sound. "After all this time, she probably doesn't even remember you." "So she's alive," Jack said quietly, his phone discreetly recording. "You've kept her hidden for 20 years. "Hidden?" Ernesto scoffed. "I gave her comfort. She lived like royalty. It was a trade." "A trade made under threat," a new voice cut in. At the door stood Marcus, and beside him, an elderly woman with kind, familiar eyes brimming with decades of grief. "Mom," Nina whispered, her voice trembling. Amelia Rivera stepped forward. Slowly, her eyes locked on the daughter she hadn't seen since childhood. "Nina," she said. Just outside the office, Helena watched everything unfold, her phone silently recording every word. What had started as a reunion between mother and daughter was about to unravel the entire foundation of the Mercer Empire, exposing how greed, disguised as success, had destroyed countless lives, and no fortune, no PR spin could bury this truth anymore. But as Ernesto Mercer stood watching the walls of his kingdom collapse, one final secret remained. Jack wasn't even his biological son. He was an orphan, adopted to replace the child his wife had lost in silence. A final twist set in motion years ago, now coming full circle because of a mechanic wearing a sapphire ring. The atmosphere in the Mercer penthouse was electric, every breath thick with revelation. Nina and her mother stood face to face after 2 decades. The ever-dominant Ernesto suddenly looked small, his control slipping away. "This is impossible," he stammered, backing away. "You were under constant watch." "Money can buy silence, Ernesto," Amelia said, her voice clear and unshaken. "But not loyalty. Some people still have hearts." Nina stepped forward, her body trembling with the weight of 20 years of abandonment, of questions without answers. When she finally embraced her mother, words weren't needed. Tears said everything. Jack stood still, his emotions storming beneath the surface. "Why, Dad?" he asked, voice cracking. "Why destroy a family for a piece of land?" "That land wasn't just land," Ernesto snapped. "It holds the largest water reserve in the region. It's worth billions. It's our future." "And that justifies what you did?" Jack asked, his voice laced with disgust. "How do you live with that?" A dangerous gleam flashed in Ernesto's eyes. "The same way I justified adopting an orphan to replace the son I lost." The room froze. Jack staggered, his face pale. "What did you say? You think 6 months in that shelter was an accident?" Ernesto let out a bitter laugh. "Your mother died giving birth. Our son didn't survive. You were just a convenient replacement. No health issues. No family to question it." The truth hit Jack like thunder. His identity, a carefully crafted lie. He wasn't a Mercer by blood. Just another file manipulated by power. "That's not the only lie," Helena said, stepping into the room at last. In her hands was an old folder. "I did my homework," she said coolly. "This file explains why I never trusted this merger." Ernesto's face turned white. "What did you do?" "Just basic due diligence," she replied, "including your entire record of fraudulent adoptions. Jack wasn't the only one." Marcus placed a hand on Jack's shoulder. "This means," he began. "That you and Nina," Helena finished, "aren't just childhood friends. You're siblings, same mother, different fathers. Your identities were deliberately separated to hide the truth." Jack and Nina locked eyes. Same shade. Same shape. How had no one seen it before? "That's why the ring meant so much to you both," Amelia whispered, tears rolling down her cheeks. "It was your family's heirloom." "I gave him that ring," Amelia said softly, "before Ernesto took Jack away. He made him believe it was a gift from a mother he never knew." In the distance, sirens echoed, getting closer by the second. "This ends now," Jack said, his voice clear, resolute. "All the lies. All the manipulation." The following week, headlines erupted across the country. Ernesto Mercer, once praised as a business visionary, was arrested for fraud, kidnapping, and document tampering. The Mercer legacy, built on secrets and stolen lives, collapsed as investigators uncovered decades of deception. Jack, now aware of his real origins as the son of Amelia Rivera, publicly denounced the Mercer name and reclaimed his true family name. The land, once at the center of it all, was returned to the Rivera family. The massive corporate project was abandoned. In its place, a nature preserve and a new community center serving hundreds of families in the region. 6 months later, inside the Esperanza Auto Workshop, now modernized and thriving, Nina leaned over an engine, tightening a bolt. Nearby, Jack was reviewing paperwork for the newly launched Rivera Foundation, a home for abandoned children. "Does it still feel strange?" Nina asked, wiping her hands on a rag. "Knowing everything you believed in was built on lies?" Jack looked up, smiling genuinely. A smile that had rarely surfaced in his former life. Strange, yes, but freeing too. He touched the small, wooden bird he now wore as a pendant. "We lost 20 years, but we found the truth. And our family." Amelia walked in with a tray of lemonade. Her eyes, once dimmed by sorrow, now shone with the light of long-awaited justice. "The ring," she said gently, noticing it still on Nina's finger. "It always kept us close, even when we didn't know it." Sometimes, the most tangled lies are unraveled by the simplest connections. A ring, passed from mother to son, then to a sister he never knew he had. And sometimes, empires born of injustice don't collapse under guilt, but under the unstoppable weight of truth. A truth that waits, that returns, and that heals. If this story of hidden family bonds and long-buried truths moved you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories that remind us how truth, even painful truth, can heal wounds we thought would never close and bring lives separated by greed back together again.